A lot worse to come, I think.
Worse still to come. I think the worst yet to come.
There's more to come.
How much more?
A lot more.
They're talking about the financial crisis we've already had. But according to some economists, we ain't seen nothing yet.
So people have been hurting, and I understand that. And it doesn't give them comfort or solace for me to tell them, but for me, we'd be in a worldwide depression. But for me, we'd be in a worldwide depression.
If you want to create jobs, the quickest way to do it is to provide more funding for food stamps.
9 million people already collecting jobless benefits. A record 41.8 million on food stamps. And the Speaker of the House says, bring it on.
It's the biggest bang for the buck when you do food stamps and unemployment insurance. The biggest bang for the buck.
Welcome, everyone. I'm Stuart Varney in for Neil Cavuto. This is Your World. Want to stimulate the economy? Just give people more food stamps. The Speaker says for every dollar that goes in, $1.79 goes out into the economy. Her focus on food stamps coming ahead of a big jobs report that's expected to show a rise in the unemployment rate. So, are they really getting the best bang for the buck with food stamps?
The number of Americans using food stamps has climbed at an alarming rate. Reports are now showing that 1 out of 8 Americans are receiving food stamps. Nearly 42 million Americans rely on government aid to purchase food. That is a record high.
Well, the Obama administration today announcing it plans to ask Congress for $2 billion to help to better arm the Pakistani military for its, you fill in the blank, fight against terrorism. But the proposal comes amid several recent reports that the Pakistanis may actually be playing both sides of the fence here. This morning, the Secretary of State Hillary Clinton made the plan public at a meeting in D.C. with the Foreign Minister of Pakistan, and we're told that if it is approved, Pakistan will use the money to buy U.S.-made weapons and ammunition. But is this really our best interest, with all the questions surrounding Pakistan's loyalty? With us now, the Washington Bureau Chief of the Reuters News Agency, Simon Denyer. Simon, hello again. Thank you.
Hey, Shep. Good to see you again.
I mean, we know from the CIA they're working against us. They're trying to kill our own soldiers, and we're giving them weapons? That just sounds dumb. Help me understand this.
It's hard to understand, to be honest with you. I mean, the Secretary of State said there was no stronger partner in the fight against Islamic extremists than Pakistan.
Longview has its first ever ban against public camping. City Council just approved that new law, but will it go unchallenged?
Well, K2's Valerie Hurst tells us more about the ordinance and the chances that it will stand up in court. Val?
Well, Natalie, certainly we've seen Portland and even other Oregon cities struggle to really come up with a good sidewalk camping ordinance that would hold up in court. The one that Longview City Council approved last night, they say it's mirrored after ones that we've seen in the state of Washington, cities like Bellevue and Olympia that seem to have succeeded. Business owners in downtown Longview say the problem of homeless people camping on the street is just growing worse. They say it's dangerous and a public health problem, and they're concerned it's hurting business by scaring away customers. Now, some campers are right outside the front door of Raywin Park's new hotel.
Because if I were a guest to the hotel, then, that's really downside of it. See what I mean? I don't know if I want to come back.
Advocates for the homeless, backed by the ACLU, say the new ordinance criminalizes homeless people without giving them housing options. A man who's experienced homelessness himself was going before the council last night saying that he himself has been a victim of a tough economy, and because of that, he says an ordinance like this just is not right. Now, the ACLU warned City Council that there could be constitutionality issues here with this, saying that especially the penalties of this new ordinance they did not like. After a first warning, you can get 90 days in jail or a fine of up to $1,000.
The irony of the current U.S. economy that some are clearly failing to realize is that while people on Wall Street are pocketing hundreds of thousands of dollars, there are millions of people across the country whose pockets are absolutely empty. One city that is not able to cover up its economic wounds anymore is New York, where an extreme hike in people without cash and homes has taken place. For more on this, we go to RT correspondent Anastasia Churkina, who joins us live from our New York studios. Anastasia, tell us more about what's going on over there.
Well, you know, Priya, big cities have always been prone to homelessness, but what is going on in New York City right now is really beating all records. Last year, homelessness in New York has gone up by an entire 50%, and many are saying if the spiraling out of control situation is not stopped and cut at the core, this could really become a very big plague. Take a look.
12, 28, 17.
This is no lottery for a chance to win some cash. These people are patiently waiting to find out if they can win a roof over their heads for the night. They're not criminals, they're not drunks. Their flaw is that they just don't have a home.
Absolutely packed.
These days, the chances of getting a bed in New York are slimmer than ever.
Seems the greed is good. Only for the uber greedy, that is. You know how reports keep coming out saying that the recession officially ended in June of 2009? And those reports just don't seem to fit with the skyrocketing unemployment rates, foreclosure rates, wage cuts, and everything else that we're seeing across America. Well, it turns out that there's one place in the country where that does fit, and it's Wall Street. According to an investigation by the Wall Street Journal, Wall Street pay is set to break a new record high for the second consecutive year. Yep, the top 3 dozen banks and investment firms are set to pay a whopping $144 billion in compensation and benefits this year, a 4% increase from 2009. So how is it that Wall Street seems to live in its own little bubble and not feel the effects of the recession that they created while everyone else suffers? It just doesn't seem
Since our nation's housing crisis began, millions of Americans have lost their homes to foreclosure. But not everyone necessarily loses in a foreclosure. Some of the giant law firms that process the paperwork to put people out of their homes, they're making millions. The Florida Attorney General is investigating multiple law firms regarding their foreclosure practices, including the firm housed in this building, one with more than 1,000 employees and that processed more than 70,000 foreclosures last year alone. The guy whose name is on the door is David Stern. According to county records, he also owns this $15 million mansion and that multi-million-dollar yacht. Opposing lawyers have long taken issue with what this firm is allegedly doing to hapless homeowners.
It's obvious that submitting a document to a court, which is not what it appears to be on its face, which contains false signatures, obviously that's illegal.
What this foreclosure defense lawyer is describing is documents like this.
This is a very important document that enables them to take someone's home. Here you have one signature for one person and the same signature for a different person.
And that's the tip of the iceberg when it comes to potential problems. This is a deposition recently taken by the Florida Attorney General from a former employee of David Stern's law firm. We had to do chronological things that were obviously changed and fudged. They wanted us to start changing the documents and stuff and doing stuff we weren't supposed to be doing. She also alleges the firm was filing foreclosures without even notifying homeowners.
You know how it is. Before you can be sued in court and your property can be taken from you, you have a right to actually receive the papers which explain what the claim is against you. It's a fundamental right. Well, in this case, foreclosures were going forward, according to this lady, in many, many instances, not only where the people had not gotten the papers, but where false documents had been filed with the court, swearing under oath that they had, in fact, received the papers.
In related news, the banking giant Wells Fargo has again dismissed calls to review its foreclosure practices. On Wednesday, Wells Fargo issued a statement calling its procedures, quote, sound and accurate. Wells Fargo has faced scrutiny after a company vice president said she'd signed as many as 500 foreclosure documents in a 2-hour span without reviewing them nor even understanding what she was signing. Wells Fargo issued the statement as it reported a third-quarter profit of $3.3 billion, the best quarter in its history.
As governments act to cut crushing debts and deficits, as citizens prepare to accept a big cut in services, well, in Europe, the answer came loud and clear today. No, nein, nunca. You get the drift. From bus drivers in Spain to doctors in Greece, hundreds of thousands of people took to the streets across Europe to oppose painful austerity measures and higher taxes. Our Europe editor, Gavin Hewitt, reports from Madrid, where a general strike brought that city to a virtual standstill.
Large crowds were on the streets in Madrid this evening, supporting Spain's first general strike in 8 years. The message, repeated here and elsewhere in Europe today, was no to austerity. Before dawn, strikers were at the Madrid transport depot trying to prevent buses leaving. The Spanish unions wanted to shut down the capital and so demonstrate that the people were against spending cuts. Later, columns of strikers marched around the city centre. When they found stores that were defying calls for a general strike, they pushed inside, insisting the owners close for the day. The police often intervened, but still the shutters came down. The strikers argued that working people were seeing their benefits cut to pay off debts caused by the banks.
We spent 100 years earning the rights that we have as workers in this country, and I don't think the first thing we need to do is lose them, and the banks should be the ones who are paying for this crisis.
Clashes break out between French police and striking refinery workers at the Grand Prix site. Attempts to break up a human chain formed across the entrance prompt scuffles and injuries. The workers have been told to get back to work so fuel supplies can flow again. But they say the state intervention will only harden their resolve.
Smouldering tension in France as a pension reform bill that sparked weeks of violent protest is passed by politicians. The country's Senate voted 177 to 153 to raise the age of retirement from 60 to 62.
I see London, I see France. But does the U.S. have a chance? Exploding economic crises across the pond could be a preview of coming attractions here at home. First, the images from France, violent demonstrations dragging on for an 8th day, sparked in part by the French government's plan to raise the retirement age by 2 years. Meanwhile, in that country, much as in our own, European banks still reaping blockbuster profits and the optics of special interest control of the government. Fairly transparent and now coming at the expense of striking workers. A third of gas stations are shut down. A quarter of flights are canceled. Garbage piling up in the streets. And truly a matter of life and death for the sick as doctors and nurses not showing up for work. Chaos unfolding because the French, having been, well, messed with long enough by their special interest, appear to be fed up. A similar spending crisis just a few hundred miles north in London. Except these cuts even deeper. The biggest in generations. Tax increases, 500,000 public sector jobs cut, billions slashed from welfare spending, and a raise in the retirement age to 66, 4 more years than the increase in France. Of course, the banksters in that country making out like bandits all the same. The difference between the land of Big Ben and, of course, France is that there's no uproar, no rioting, no gridlock. No way the French would ever take it that way. Our question, what happens when we can no longer ignore our own controlled, manipulated, extracting economy and its impact on loss of teachers, loss of judges, loss of firefighters, and the impending threat to public revenues on the tax base as a result of the screwing of the housing market in this country by our banks and our government.